So as I'm recording this, I have no idea what this video will be titled or what the thumbnail will be. I'm finding it really difficult not to have this topic sound like a bunch of clickbait. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Very few, if any, people who do what I'm about to describe are going to get rich. And for any that might get rich this way, it's not going to be quick. However, I want to encourage you to do it anyway. I want to encourage you, or at least many of you, to consider starting your own business or at least building your own product. Today, I'm going to talk about why I think many of you should, and some about how, although that's a huge topic and it won't fit in one video or even a dozen. But if you're watching the video because you saw the title and you want to get rich quick, I can help you. But good news is there are a lot of other people on YouTube who say that they can, so they might be able to help you. But they probably won't, because most of them are full of shit. This is the Internet of Bugs. My name's Carl. I've been a software pro for about 35 years, and I'm on a quixotic quest to eradicate bugs on the internet. So today, I'm going to be talking about starting your own thing. Product, service, business, side hustle, something. We'll talk about what later. With AI. Now, assuming that you're a developer or studying to be one. That is, if you're not, or you don't want to write a ton of code, this path isn't for you. Also, I'm assuming that you're not working for an employer who has an employment contract with you where everything that you write belongs to them. If you're in that boat, feel free to think about this, but don't actually start anything or write anything down until you get a different kind of job, because you don't want that lawsuit. But if you're a developer currently looking for work, or expecting that you might be looking for work soon, or you think that your current work isn't 100% secure, then I encourage you to start thinking about this. And if you aren't in one of those three buckets, I'm not exactly sure what you're doing. Okay, that out of the way. Let me tell you why I want you to start your own thing, because it will make you a better programmer. And it will change your mindset about bugs and about the people that use your software. So I started a few things. None of them made me a lot of money. Some of them never really got off the ground. Some were instrumental in getting me hired somewhere. And some I launched and eventually shut down. But I learned a ton from all of them, and I think that you will too. All of the worst programmers I have ever worked with, some of them very, very, very senior at very big companies, all spent all or almost all of their careers in teams where they avoided being wholly responsible for anything. I think there was one of them that actually did his own thing for a very short period of time and didn't like it and bailed. These folks, guys, almost all guys, all consider themselves too good for QA. They consider themselves too good for first-line support. They never worried about losing money because some customers stopped using their software. Now, not every programmer that I worked with that had that background was awful, but pretty much all of the awful ones had that background. Also, none of the best programmers I've ever worked with were ever that kind. All of the really good programmers I've ever worked with at some point did their own thing, or they were at a really, really small company where they were running the whole show. And the best development manager I ever worked with had an interview question that he said was the best indicator of a good programmer. It was something on the order of, if I give you 100K in 6 months, what would you build? The numbers change depending on the years, but you get the idea. He said anyone who didn't seem to have thought about that question never made his teams. Better developers make software with fewer bugs. I want fewer bugs, so I want you to all be better programmers. And that means that I want you all to do your own thing. Now, let's talk about what's in it for you. So first off, I've got 3 pieces of bad news. So number 1, the job market for programmers right now isn't great. It's still better than for a lot of professions, but it's nowhere near where it was 3 to 5 years ago. Number 2, there's a decent chance that we, well, here in the US where I am, are heading into a recession. And when the US has economic issues, it affects a lot of the rest of the world. Now, I'm not an economist. I don't know if we're heading for a recession. I don't know that anybody else really knows. But here are some articles, links in the description, from actual economists talking about indications that we might be starting one or might be in the beginnings of one. And the idea that we might be close to one is enough for me to start to try to make precautions. Number 3, there are companies out there who are holding off hiring programmers, hoping that AI will be able to do that work soon. This will be the case until the AI bubble pops, and I don't know how long it's going to take for the bubble to pop. And when it does, it's going to take a bunch of stuff with it, and it's going to take us a while to recover. So it's not unlikely that it's going to be a rough couple of years. So let's talk about the good news. There are a ton of people out there promoting using an AI to start a business, and almost all of them are counting on the AI to do some or all of the programming or technical tasks. And if you've seen my other videos, you know that I doubt that those AIs will do a very good job of the technical tasks. But that's good news for you because you're a developer. And that's the part that you are good at. And the kinds of things that developers typically aren't good at. Marketing copy, sales copy, that kind of stuff. AI is way better at that stuff than it is at code. And even if that AI marketing copy stinks, there's a magic trick to make it work better. And that magic trick is called A/B testing. And it absolutely should be in every programmer's toolbox these days. More about that later. So here's the thing. It has never been cheaper or easier to start a software-based business than it is now. If you go look at most of the "let me tell you how to start a business" folks, you'll find that the thing they say is the biggest cost these days is the development cost. And that's what you already do. Back when I was starting out, you had to have your own servers, you had to have your own UPSs, you had to have your own network connections, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff's in the cloud now. It is so much easier to start a software business now. And their startup costs are really, really small if you're not having to do the development, or if you're not having to pay for developers, which you luckily don't. In startups, of which I've done several, there are really two huge costs: development and marketing, advertising, and sales. You can trade your time for the development costs, and you don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads because you don't have a bunch of venture capitalist investors that want to get their payout as fast as they possibly can. I only have one piece of advice for you about what kind of business to start, and that's to start by building something that would be useful to you yourself. That way, if it doesn't work out, you still have the software that you built to use yourself. From a development perspective, realize that a very large amount of the architecture of any online software service is pretty much the same as all the other ones. You need a website, you need a database, you need authentication, you need a way to take money, etc., 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 right? So first off, what you learn building your own thing will have a bunch of overlap with whatever future opportunities might come up for you in the online software space. And secondly, whatever you build will share a lot in common with a bunch of other things that you might have built or could build. And that's something a lot of people don't realize about startups. Startups do a lot of pivoting. I've worked at several early stage startups, and none of them have ever found success on the first iteration of the first idea that they started building. You put the thing out there, you see what people resonate with, you tweak it, you change it, you tweak it, you change it, you find something that people like that you didn't expect, you start focusing your product on that. That's the pivot. That's the way it all works, right? So the idea is to get something out there and then to see what people respond to. And once you get something out there, a lot of the basic puzzle pieces you've got are the same, no matter what direction you start going from there. There are a lot of opportunities once you get something up and running. You're quite a way down the path of having built a lot of other things that you could have built. So even if your first idea doesn't work out, and there's a good chance that it won't, you've still learned a lot, and you've built foundations that you might be able to apply to other problems as they come up. And once you have that foundation and a minimum viable product, then the goal is to attract people to it, and that's where AI comes in. You can use AI to generate a bunch of marketing text for your website, and some of it will stink, maybe most of it will stink, but that's okay, because that's where A/B testing comes in. You make however many copies of the web page that you want. Just ask GPT, ask Claude, whatever. You randomly assign each person, each visitor to your website, one of the versions of that. And then you use statistics to figure out which one performs better. You throw out the ones that don't perform better, you iterate over the ones that do perform better, and you just keep going. Over time, you refine the copy, you keep refining your services until either you realize that you've got something worth selling or you don't. In the startup world, all of this is accelerated by throwing a ton of money at it. Develop faster to bring in a ton of website visitors with expensive ads. But if you can be patient, you don't have to throw a lot of money at it. But that means it'll take a long time. And that's okay, because the idea here, at least to start with, isn't to quit your job and do this full time. That's a really bad idea. But you could potentially make some amount of side income. And that gives you a little bit of financial cushion. And honestly, you'll be surprised how much of a difference that makes. If something happens to your primary income, having that little bit that doesn't seem like much actually turns out to be a lot more important than you'd think, or at least than I ever thought, until it happened to me. And if you do end up laid off, It gives you something productive you can do with your time besides fretting about job hunting. Now, don't get me wrong, people who've been laid off need to spend time job hunting, but it turns out that the difference in effectiveness of job hunting between job hunting 2 hours a day and job hunting 16 hours a day is actually pretty small. Once you get to a couple of hours a day, you're really not doing much except churning and stressing yourself out. And the impact on your mental health of spending 16 hours a day job hunting is very, very high. So having something productive to do if you do get laid off is great, and it gives you something to talk about in interviews. Now, I know I've been pretty vague on the details in this video, and that's because there have been a lot of books written about this, and there can be many, many hours of video content made on each little subtopic of starting a software business. This video was just about making you start thinking about whether or not you should do it, and if you think you might, start looking around for things in your life that bug you, that a software service potentially might be able to help with. For you, and potentially for other people with that problem. I'll be making more videos on this topic, probably a lot of them. As I've said before though, once I get into talking about specific blocks of code, YouTube's analytics tell me that a lot of people stop watching. So at YouTube's suggestion, I've started a channel membership as a way to separate those deep dives from more general interest stuff. I've got a video linked at the end of this video talking about the membership, so please watch that if you're interested in a deeper, more detailed code-based content. And if you really can't wait for more videos, here are some resources to tide you over and get you thinking. A couple of books, The Lean Startup by Eric Reis, R-E-I-S, not sure how to pronounce that, and The Lean Product Playbook by Dan Olson are good places to start. For the incredible utility of A/B testing, here's an article to get you started on a site from one of the authorities on the topic. His name's Patrick. He goes by Patio11 on the internet. Everything he writes on this topic is gold. So once you've read this article, click around on that site. There's a bunch of good stuff there. There are also a ton of websites dedicated to starting these sorts of businesses, but be very, very careful because there are a ton of people running scams in this space. IndieHackers.com and Microconf.com are two websites I've had pretty good luck with, but those are both communities with a lot of people in them, and where there's a lot of people, there are going to be grifters, so be careful. Because starting a software business will teach you to be a better programmer. And it might make you some money as well, but it's definitely a lot of work, and anyone who says that there's a quick path is trying to sell you something. Let's be careful out there.